So good evening again, everyone, and welcome to another episode of what? Leadership Unscripted. Tonight is part 3. And if you were with me for parts 1 and 2, you know how we got here. We started with stop protecting systems that no longer work. Then we asked, if everybody knows it's broken, why are we still doing it? And tonight, we're going somewhere even deeper. Imagine you're relatively new to an organization. You've noticed something. Not gossip, not personality conflict, no. A genuine problem. Maybe it's a process wasting money. Maybe customers are repeatedly complaining. Maybe employees are overwhelmed, or important information isn't reaching leadership. Or maybe a decision is creating consequences senior leaders don't appear to know about. So you mention it to an experienced colleague. They look at you, pause and say, I wouldn't say that if I were you. Why? You ask. They say to you, just trust me. Now that sentence tells us something about culture. Because now the question isn't, is there a problem? The question is, what happens to people who talk about the problem? So tonight's topic, when speaking up becomes more dangerous than staying silent. So I'm not asking anybody to expose their workplace. I would never do that. No employers, no names, no identifying situations. Just answer generally. Which kills employee voice fastest? Which kills employee voice fastest? A, being ignored. B, being embarrassed. C, retaliation. D, watching what happened to somebody else who spoke up. Which do you think kill employee voice fastest? Is it being ignored? Is it being embarrassed? Is it retaliation? Is it watching what happened to somebody who spoke up? Let me hear from you. Man, they said it's a combination. So being ignored, being embarrassed, and retaliation, all of them. Lady T says all of the above. Let me hear from somebody else. Which kills employee voice fastest? Being ignored, being embarrassed, retaliation, watching what happened to somebody who spoke up. Which do you think kills employee voice fastest? And you're on point. Can be all of them. Can be all of them. Can be all of them. But the last one matters. Because sometimes you don't have to punish everybody. People only need to watch what happened to one person. Alana says all, yes. But the last one, the last one is very powerful. People just want to see how you deal with one person who challenged you. People just want to witness how you deal with the one person who spoke up. And trust me, that teach them a lesson. And they will learn from that person's experience. So tonight we're going to follow a piece of information. So let's call it the truth. The piece of information we are following tonight, we're going to call it the truth. So the truth begins on the front line. Frontline employees often see things first. The nurse sees something before hospital executives. The teacher sees something before senior administrators. The cashier hears customers before corporate leadership. The technician sees equipment problems before executives. The customer service representative hears recurring complaints. The junior employee may notice inefficiencies because they're actually using the process every day. So the truth begins downstairs. An employee says, "This isn't working." What happens next? Maybe their immediate supervisor says, "I know." Good, then what? Are you going to raise it? And the supervisor says, "We've raised it before." The truth has encountered its first obstacle. Futility. Not fair. Futility. So why bother? That's organizational silence too. Sometimes employees aren't afraid. They've simply concluded nothing will happen. So why waste your time? And that's dangerous. Because fear can sometimes be addressed. But resignation means people have stopped expecting leadership to listen. And when people remain silent because they stop expecting you to listen, they've tried many times before you don't listen, and they've stopped telling you things. That's very dangerous. So the truth continues upstairs. Now it reaches middle management, but something happens. It gets edited. The original message was, employees are overwhelmed and the new process is creating serious delays. This message was edited. It now becomes, there are a few adjustment issues. Interesting. Then it moves another level. Now the transition is progressing. Another level. Now senior leaders hears implementation is going well. How did we get here? Nobody necessarily lied, but everybody softened. Why? Because organizations sometimes reward people for bringing good news upwards and solving bad news quietly. So middle leaders sometimes filter. They don't want to look incompetent. They don't want to appear negative. They don't want senior leaders thinking, why can't you manage your teams? And eventually, the higher information travels, the less recognizable it becomes. Can you relate to that? There's a problem. And each time you pass it on, and somebody pass it up, it keeps going up, the impact of it, everybody starts to soften it. They don't want it to sound as bad as before. So everybody, they start filtering it. So by the time it gets to the top, who can actually do something, there's nothing to be done, because guess what? The true problem was filtered. Because everybody, if I pass something to my supervisor doesn't want to look bad, so they edit it and pass to their supervisor. Their supervisor don't want to look bad, so they edit it, fix it up, let it sound nice, not so bad, and pass it up. And it keeps going up, and everybody keep filtering it, keep fixing up the problem, keep covering up the problem to let themselves look good. So when it reaches the top, what reaches the top is never the truth. And those at the bottom is still suffering. And those at the bottom start blaming those at the top. And not realizing the people who's passing the message up, they must be blamed. Because top management cannot fix what they don't hear. So the truth is filtered. How will the problem be solved? So which is more dangerous for senior leadership? Is it bad news? Filtered news? Which is more dangerous for senior leadership? If you're in leadership and there's a problem in your organization, which is more dangerous for you? Do you want to hear the news as though it is, whether it is bad or good? You want to hear it as it is, so you can deal with it. Or you prefer your middle leaders or those who work for you to kind of cushion it, to kind of soften it, to kind of fix it up. That says need to hear it as it is. That's the way it should be, but sometimes some leaders don't want to hear it as it is, especially if it was their idea. They don't want to hear that it's not working. They don't want to hear that the employees are frustrated. They don't want to hear that. So guess what? We fix it up. We kind of sweeten it up. We kind of, the policy is causing a little problem. But we're working at it, man. We're working at it. It's going slower than we anticipated, but we're working at it. Rather than telling the boss that, sir or ma'am, it's not working. The employees are frustrated. They're complaining. They don't hear that. Oh, there's some challenges here and there, but see, the senior leaders are working on it. That's filtering the problem. And usually when it is filtered, when the message is filtered, those at the bottom who is feeling the pressure start blaming those at the top. When the truth is, the real information never really reached it, didn't really reach those at the top. Donna says, we need to hear the truth, because I prefer honest communication. But in a lot of organizations, you don't get to hear the honest conversations. Everything is filtered. Everything is cushioned. Because people start thinking about the organization and the needs of others within the organization. They start thinking about themselves. Everybody is protecting their position. Everyone is protecting their job. Everyone wants to look good in the eyes of leadership. So guess what? We filter away. We filter for leadership to say, oh, they're hard working. They're trying to fix the problem. No. If it's not working, it's just not working. If it's not working, if employees are frustrated, if it was a wrong policy, if the direction it's going is wrong, just say it. If customers are complaining, just say it. That's how it will be fixed. So I'd argue filtered news. I don't want to hear any filtered news. Because at least bad news, you see, bad news gives you something real to lead. Filtered information gives you confidence without the reality. So you start believing that things are working when that's not the reality on the ground. The same way if you're the principal and you sit in your office and you don't know what's happening inside the classrooms. You don't get up from around your chair and from around their computer screen and go look what's happening inside the classrooms. Those who look can provide wrong information to you. And you'll be sitting behind your computer every day and say, oh, I have pure good teachers and good teaching is happening. Students are learning. Until the results come. And most of your students fail. And you wonder what happened. And you blame everybody but yourself. And it's simply because you've relied on second-handed information. And sometimes second-handed information is filtered. Because the head of the department is going to try to cushion stuff sometimes. Oh, we have several students who are not doing so well, but we're doing intervention. Interventions, they're making progress. The interventions are working. Let's start the cushion thing. Let's start the cushion and fix our thing. Everybody want to look good, Everybody want to give the perception to say they're hardworking. Everybody want to look hardworking in the eyes of their boss. But sometimes you have to get up and go look yourself. Not true. Sometimes you have to get up and go and look what's happening. The same thing if you're a bank manager. You can't just sit in your desk, at your desk. Sometimes you have to walk the floor to see how customers are, to experience the same experience customers are having. To see how your employees engage with customers. And sometimes you need to get up and go walk. Dialogue. Speak with the customers. Speak with your staff. Go and stand in their workspace and look, and not to judge or evaluate them, but just see how they operate, see how things are going. That's how you will know you need the first-hand information. And when people come to you with information, ask them for the real truth. Don't just, when they give you a statement, don't just take the statement and move with it. Start asking questions. Question them. Ask the why, ask the how, ask the questions. So when they're coming to you, they'll think twice about prettying up situations. No, ask the truth. Ask the truth and get multiple perspective on an issue. So the truth keeps moving. Now somebody finally said it's clear, the system isn't working. And suddenly, the conversation changes. Not about the system, it starts to become about the person. When someone speaks up and says the system isn't working, people start saying they're negative, they're difficult, they're resistant to change, they're not a team player, they complain about everything. What Alana says, what about those who are faced with facts but still have a warped sense of reality? Alana, that's a good point, you know. Some of them are faced with facts. So they're faced with the facts, and they can do it because sometimes you see, every boss have a boss. So sometimes your boss may be faced with the fact, but they can't really do anything about the fact. If that's the case, we can understand, because they have to pass it on to somebody else. But if they can do something about it and choose to do nothing, that's their downfall. That's their downfall. And you're always going to find people like that, who because of ego, because of thinking that they know it all, they're not going to want it to change. But guess what? That's their downfall. That's their downfall. So when someone speaks up in some organization, guess what now? We start labeling them. And that is where we moved from evaluating the message to evaluating the messenger. And that result in people that sometimes results in people don't want to speak up anymore. When they tell you the truth, you start labeling them. They're negative, they're difficult, they're not a team player. No, you start labeling the messenger. Exactly, they're a troublemaker. You start to evaluate the messenger and not the message. And sometimes we're afraid of the truth. But if we spend less time on the messenger and start paying attention to the message, we would actually learn something. So sometimes the messenger may indeed be difficult. Let's be balanced. Some people criticize everything, and that's a fact. Some employees resist legitimate change. Some people complain without solutions. That's a fact. Some people communicate badly. But here's the leadership test. Can a difficult person still be right? Absolutely. And if we dismiss accurate information because we dislike the person delivering it, we've made leadership personal instead of analytical. If we dismiss accurate information because we don't like the person delivering it, we've made leadership personal instead of analytical. And I always say to myself, the decisions you make in your workspace can never be personal. The feedback you receive in the workspace, the feedback you give in the workspace can never be personal. Can never be personal. It must be about the work. It must be about the work. So if you don't like me and you're giving me feedback, give me feedback based on my work, not based on how you feel about me. I don't care what you think about me. In my workspace, I'm only interested on how I'm performing and how I'm doing. Your view of me isn't matter. It isn't important. And a lot of us need to know that. That whatever discussion we're having in the organization, it must be about the work. Must be about the work. Should never be personal. And that's a fact. So here's this. Bad delivery doesn't automatically make the message wrong. You need to evaluate both. So it doesn't care who speak up, how they speak up. Pay attention to the message. You're going to address inappropriate communication, of course, when it's necessary. But you must always investigate the information. Because sometimes you may have this bitter employee. And sometimes they can be bitter and ningy-ningy about everything. But not because they're ningy-ningy and it's always fighting down everything. That doesn't mean everything they say you must ignore. You still have to pay attention to what they're saying. Because sometimes what they're saying is true. So you can't ignore what people say. You need to pay attention to suggestions. You need to listen. And use what can be used and discard what can't. Always remember that. So Carl said disliking the messenger now becomes a major barrier to... Exactly. When you don't like the person. From you see them walk in your office. Oh gosh, you again. And they're talking. And you're not listening to what a word they're saying. You're not paying them any attention. You're just there. And they're talking and they're telling you and you're not paying because you've already formed an impression of them in your mind. Alana says a broken clock is right twice. Exactly. 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 So let's talk about why people become silent. So imagine every act of speaking up has a price tag. For one organization, $0. So you respectfully disagree. People listen. Maybe they agree, maybe they don't. You go back to work, healthy. In another organization, speaking up costs. It costs reputation. Know your label as being difficult. In another, it costs you opportunity. Suddenly, you're not invited to certain rooms. In another, it costs you relationships. People become distant. In another, it results in poor performance ratings. In another, it costs you promotion. And in the worst environments, people may fear losing their employment. Now ask yourself, what rational person keeps buying honesty when the price becomes that high? What rational person would keep buying honesty when the price becomes high? So when speaking up can cost you a promotion, when you can get a bad performance rating, when it can cost you relationships, opportunity, your reputation. So if speaking up is going to cost you, can cost you all of those things, guess what? It is better to keep silent. And that's why saying people need to speak up isn't enough. You can't just say that people need to speak. No, that's not enough. Leadership must examine what does speaking up cost here. In this institution, when people speak up, what does it cost? And that's a very different question. When people speak up here, will they be sidelined? Will they miss opportunities? Will promotion pass them by? Will they be labeled? Will it affect their performance rating? Will we now start calling them difficult? So leadership needs to stop telling people to start speaking up and start asking themselves, what does speaking up in this place cost? So let's test this. You're a senior leader. Every month, your organization reviews a performance dashboard. For 6 months, one indicator has been green. That's excellent. At the next meeting, a relatively junior analyst raises their hand. They say, I think this number may be misleading. The room becomes quiet. They explain that the calculation being used excludes a category of cases that should probably be included. If they are right, the green indicator should actually be red. A senior manager immediately responds, "We've used this methodology for years." Another says, "This has already been reviewed." The analyst becomes uncomfortable. Then somebody says, "Are you suggesting our reporting is inaccurate?" Now imagine you're chairing the meeting. What would you do? Would you A, ask the analyst to raise it privately afterward? B, defend the established methodology unless they have definitive proof? C, stop the conversation and ask the analyst to walk everyone through their concern? Or D, commission a review but move the meeting on immediately? What would you do if you're chairing that meeting? Mandy says C. What's C? Stop the conversation and ask the analyst to walk everyone through their concern. Okay. Anybody else? What would you do? You're chairing the meeting. There's an area of the performance review that has always been given green. But a junior analyst in one of the meetings says, "You're missing something." And that's the reason your record is always showing green. If that area is added, it will actually be red. So you're celebrating that the company is doing well in that area. But that's not actually the case, because you did not include all the factors. You're chairing that meeting. And you hear the old employee says, "We've used this methodology for years. This has already been reviewed. Are you suggesting our reporting is inaccurate?" As a chair for the meeting, what would you do? Would you ask the analyst to raise it privately afterward? Would you defend the established methodology unless they have definitive proof? Would you stop the conversation and ask the analyst to walk everyone through their concern? Or D, would you commission a review but move the meeting on immediately? What would you do? Mandy says C. Mandy says she would stop the conversation and ask the analyst to walk everyone through their concern. And that's a good response. Because we're not looking at the messenger. Not because it's a junior analyst. We're not looking at the messenger. We're analyzing the message. And a lot of leaders need to start pay attention to the message and not the messenger. So I lead you C, as Mandy says, with appropriate boundaries. Why? Because your response in that moment isn't only communicating with the analyst. Everybody in the room is watching. They're learning. What happens when somebody challenges established thinking? Does leadership become curious or defensive? Does status win or does evidence? Even if the analyst turns out to be wrong, the leader can say, "Thank you for raising it. Let's examine the methodology." And if they're wrong, fine. We learned. But if they're right, that junior employee may have just protected the entire organization from making decisions based on inaccurate information. So here's the truth. Speaking up isn't disloyalty when the intention is to protect the mission. Let me go again. Speaking up isn't disloyalty when the intention is to protect the organization. Mandy says healthy leadership doesn't fear uncomfortable information. That's true. Healthy leadership doesn't fear uncomfortable information. So now let's put some research underneath tonight's conversation. So Professor Amy Edmondson's work on psychological safety has become highly influential in understanding why people speak up or why they don't. So psychological safety does not mean everybody agrees. No accountability. Nobody gets uncomfortable. Everyone gets away. It means broadly that people believe they can take interpersonal risk, such as asking questions, admitting mistakes, offering ideas, or raising concerns without being humiliated or punished simply for speaking. And this matters because organizations need information, especially bad information. They need to hear about their mistakes, risk, near misses, customer complaints, weak ideas, failed processes, ethical concerns. So if leadership creates an environment where people only bring good news, leaders eventually start making decisions inside a fictional organization. So everything looks fine on the dashboard. Meanwhile, the real organization exists in all-way conversations. And that can be very, very dangerous when leadership is making decisions based on wrong information. So tonight's strategy is intentionally different from the previous shows. So tonight, I'm not going to give you no 5-letter acronym, no. I want leaders to create something. So the red team chair, this one, in important meetings, deliberately create a rule for challenge, not negativity, challenge. So before a major decision is finalized, someone is explicitly asking, tell us why this might fail. Another question, what are we missing? Another, what would someone closest to implementation say about this? Or what evidence would prove our current assumption wrong? And here's the important part. Rotate the role. Don't make one person permanent. The difficult person, normalize challenge. Today the deputy challenges. Next week the finance person. Another meeting the junior employee. Another meeting you invite someone from the front line. And why does this help? Because no disagreement isn't automatically interpreted as disloyalty. It's part of the process. So you're institutionalizing constructive dissent. Let me take you through that now. So what this strategy is basically saying, when you are implementing a strategy, strategically have people asking certain difficult questions of the team. We know it's staged, but guess what? People get more comfortable asking difficult questions when the right time comes and those questions are needed to be asked. People will feel more comfortable asking them because they will know you will not judge the messenger, you'll be judging the message. Because too often, when people bring information to us as leaders, we're analyzing the messenger and not the message. And that's wrong. We need to pay attention to the message and not so much the messenger. So, and this connects seamlessly with the teaching and learning leader. So a learning organization, I say, requires feedback loops. We cannot improve teaching without what? Without evidence. We cannot improve leadership if we're not getting feedback and accurate feedback too. We cannot improve our organizations if information only travels downward. If you are just passing down information, and you're not getting feedback from those at the bottom, you're not getting feedback from those who are experiencing, those who are on the front line every day, the organization is bound to fail. So learning requires people to be able to say, this didn't work, I made a mistake, I don't understand, or I disagree. The evidence is showing something different. So if people must pretend everything is successful all the times, there's no learning, only performance. And organizations that perform success instead of examining the reality eventually becomes vulnerable. And here's my thought on that. You cannot improve what people are afraid to describe accurately. You cannot improve what people are afraid to describe accurately. So that means if you're a leader, you must be open to feedback. It can't be about you passing on information. Feedback needs to be coming up to you. So when you make decisions, you're making informed decisions. And this series to connect directly with this book, The Psychology of Fragility. So fragile systems protect themselves from uncomfortable information. Resilient systems use uncomfortable information to adapt. That's a major difference. So if every criticism threatens the organization's identity, it's fragile. If leaders need every initiative to succeed because admitting failure would embarrass them, they're fragile. If disagreement is interpreted as disrespect, they're fragile. A resilient leader can say, this isn't working. A resilient organization can say, I think we got this wrong. And then they're going to ask, what did we learn? And that's strength. Not pretending failure doesn't exist. Learning faster because somebody was courageous enough to reveal it. So I don't want tonight to become leadership needs to listen and employees can say whatever they want. No. Speaking up carries responsibility too. So ask yourself, am I raising a concern or spreading frustration? Am I bringing evidence? Have I chosen an appropriate forum? Have I spoken to the appropriate person? Am I attacking someone's character? Am I genuinely trying to improve something? Have I considered that I may be wrong? Can I disagree professionally? Psychological safety isn't permission to be recklessness. It isn't permission for recklessness, sorry. Courage without professionalism can become noise. But professionalism without courage can become silence. We need both. We need courage and we need professionalism. We need the courage to speak up. But when you're speaking up, you must remember that we are professionals. Mandy says, if people can't tell you the truth, then you are not ready to lead. So remember, the truth we started following tonight. It began on the front line. It encountered futility, then filtered, then labels, then fear, and somehow it finally reached leadership. Now the final question is, will employees speak? It's what will leaders do when they do? What will leaders do when employees speak up? Because that's what determines whether they speak next time. If someone brings you bad news tomorrow, pay attention to your first reaction. Your face. That's something I need to work on. Oh boy. Your tone. Your questions. Do you say, who told you that? Or, tell me more. Do you say, that's not true? Or, what are you seeing that I may not be seeing? Do you defend? Or do you investigate? Because your response to today's uncomfortable truth teaches people what to do with it tomorrow. Remember that. How you respond when someone tells you the truth. It is teaching them what to do when they hear information in the future. To either come to you or remain quiet. So I want you to finish one sentence tonight. Remember, no employer name, no examples, just leadership wisdom. People speak honestly when leaders what? Fill the blank. People speak honestly when leaders listen. I'm going to start. People speak honestly when leaders listen. Let me hear from you. And remember, you can come in the box. So we can have a good conversation. Remember that. People speak honestly when leaders what? Daf says are respectful. Mm-hmm. Anybody else? People speak honestly when leaders are what? Daf says respectful. Anybody else? I said listen. When leaders listen, people speak honestly. Let me hear from anybody else. Nobody? Kaf says when leaders are transparent, people will speak honestly. True. People speak honestly when leaders don't retaliate. Mandy says people will speak honestly when leaders make it safe to tell the truth. Lady T says people speak honestly when leaders are trustworthy. Donna Monroe says trustworthy as well. What about when leaders admit mistake? Or when they will protect you? So you bring critical information to them. They know it's very sensitive. And you put your relationship on the line and to say, boss, so and so and so and so not working. Not gossiping, no. Genuine information that can protect the business, the company or organization. You're supposed to protect those people. Cass said demonstrate fairness. Mandy says are not defensive. When they don't punish the messenger. When they follow up. Some people don't just want to tell you things. They want to know that you're going to do something with it. You're going to follow up. Man, it's when they don't label you. So we started this series with 3 conversations. We started with stop protecting systems that no longer work. Then, everybody knows it's broken, so why are we still doing it? And tonight, we're focusing on when speaking up becomes more dangerous than staying silent. Put all 3 together, and perhaps the lesson is, systems don't change simply because people know they're broken. Systems don't change simply because people know they're broken. They change when organizations can hear the truth, examine it without defensiveness, and have enough leadership courage to act on what they discover. And leaders, remember this. The employee who respectfully tells you something you don't want to hear may be more valuable to your organization than 10 people who agree with everything you say. Let me go again. Leaders, the employee who respectfully tells you something you don't want to hear may be more valuable to your organization than 10 people who agree with everything you say. So don't build a culture where people become excellent at reading the room. Don't build a culture where people become excellent at reading the room. Build a culture where they can help you read reality. Build a culture where people can help you as a leader read reality. Because the greatest danger isn't always that nobody knows what's wrong. Sometimes everybody knows. They just stopped telling you. Good night, everyone. This has been Leadership Unscripted. Mandy says when we feel our advice will be followed up on when necessary. Okay, you're talking about love this. Thank you very much, Alana. So it's Friday night. This is our last show for the week. We'll be back here again on Monday. Next week, as I said, I'm going to be focusing on school school-related topics from Monday to Friday. School-related topics. I'm going to be focusing on school-related topics. Because we're heading back to school, a lot of teachers, if you're in the US, you've gone back to school already. If you're in the Cayman Islands, we're back in school. If you're in Jamaica, you're getting ready. Or in some other parts of the Caribbean, you're getting ready to go back to school. So we're going to be talking about relationships, interaction with parents, communication, leadership in school, and all those things. Some of the things we see teachers doing on social media that I honestly believe they're doing it for the clicks. Do you see the video on TikTok? It's so disturbing. Let me see if I can find it for you. Let me see if I can. The one with the fart corner. Do you guys see that one? I don't know if you guys saw that one. Where the teacher made a video with and label a corner, the fart corner. And the corner is in the library. So imagine you're a student in that class and the teacher there and think, oh, it's a good strategy. That teacher want to hit behind her neck back. Imagine a student in the library. What kind of message are we sending as educators? Because we want clicks. Imagine a student in the library reading. Because the library area, you create a library area in your class. You're going to have students sitting on the floor, sitting on carpet, sitting on whatever cushions, reading and enjoying the moment. And you know, as a big, grown, hardback adult, label the corner, fart corner. And another child walk over and pass gas. Can you imagine that experience for that child? And exactly, and the kids will use that to be disruptive. I saw it and I didn't even find it funny. Because if I was a principal for that school and I came across my teacher post that on TikTok, I don't know what that teacher how that teacher could explain themselves out of that. Are you crazy? So can you imagine you're in the class and 5 of your children want to park, they're going to come and go over the corner, you hear gas passing over there. And some kids will use it to, as Malana said, disrupt the class. So I see a lot of educators, everybody want to have a platform nowadays. Nothing is wrong with that. But as educators, as professionals, my gosh, man, be careful what you put out with there. Not every idea that you come up with is a good idea. Not everything that comes across your mind is worth bringing to light. Yeah, man. You have some disturbing things on TikTok. So guess what now? If you're here, guess what now? If you're here, and when you come across, because one of the nights next week, we're going to be talking about some of those things we see teachers across different countries posting on TikTok. That's really doing more harm than good. So if you're on TikTok or anywhere and you come across those videos, just send them my way. Because one night we're going to be showcasing those videos and we're going to be having a discussion about some of them. We should definitely know what to post. There's no way she's actually planning to implement. Exactly that. There's no way she's actually planning to implement that. And even if she's not planning, she's doing it for the clicks. Can you imagine when a student walking and say, Miss, I saw you on TikTok, where's the fart corner? Or a child come and just walk over there and bust a fart. Eh? What could she say? What can she say? What can she say? If I just walk in the class, I saw your video on TikTok to say, in my classroom, you're my teacher. In my classroom, you have a corner over there labeled as fart corner. And Monday morning I come, and in the middle of your lesson you're teaching, and I decide to get up and go over there, go past my gas loud in front of everybody. You cannot punish me. And if I'm a parent, you cannot punish my child. You label the corner as that. So teachers, please, if you're an educator on here, not everything you see people on this on TikTok doing. She probably would say, did you say excuse me? Exactly, Charmaine. Good night, India. How are you? So we need to be very, very careful. Very, very careful what we post. As educators, be very careful, man. You have a life outside of work, yes. But when you're posting things that is linked to your profession, you have to be careful. You have to be careful. Why didn't you say you have that corner in your home? Why didn't you say you have that corner in your home? Why have to take it and put the corner inside of an actual classroom? And what disturbed me the most was in the library. And I'm a lover of literacy. That's what I have my first degree and my master's in. I love literacy. And of all the places, you took it to the precious library where the books are. Want to lick across your head back, man. Madness. Madness, Charmaine. Madness. 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 Some foolish you see on TikTok, you say, well, guess what? Guess what? As I said, if you see some of those videos, just send them my way. Because we're going to be breaking down some of those things on this show. So I'm not going to be here sitting every night. No. I'm not going to be here sitting every night. We're going to start having some really, really good conversation. And sometimes too, I may post a topic, and when I come on the night, the topic change. Because if there's something more pressing, if I see something more pressing or more interesting I want to talk about, we're going to start talking about it. And one of you stop to shy too, if you come on the screen and talk to me too. Make people hear no voice, eh? You must come on the screen, man, and talk so people can hear your voice too. Not true. And not me just sitting here looking all pretty and nice. You know something nice, man. But you know, come and talk on the screen too. Sure. So that is it for Leadership Unscripted tonight. We will not have any formal show tomorrow night and Sunday night. I think I need to take my rest. I'm still on medication and stuff. I was in the hospital yesterday. I think I'm going to take I need to take my weekends to really rest. Because as I said, it's back to school. But I'm coming next week hot and with some hot topics and some creative ways. Some creative way. Mandy says, yeah, I do. I know I am. I know I need to take some rest. I know I need to take some rest. I'm starting to listen to my body. So as an educator, start listening to your body, you know. Because sometimes you feel that one little pain and you ignore it. You ignore it, and then in 2 weeks' time, the pain emerges somewhere else. That's too pain now, you know, and you ignore it the same way. And then a month's time, the pain starts to get severe. And by the time you reach doctor, the damage would have already been done. Don't be like me, please. Don't be like me. When you feel something, don't ignore it. When you feel something, don't be like me. When you feel something, don't ignore it. Go check it out. Especially if you work in high stressful organizations, or your job is highly stressful and you're dealing with stress every day, please don't ignore when your body is talking to you. So if you wake up and you're feeling a little lump nowhere, if you're feeling a little bump, unusual bump nowhere, check it out, please. Check it out, please. If you feel a little dizzy and you ignore it and go drink ginger tea like me, don't do that. Don't do that, please. Don't do that. Check on every little, especially if you do high stressful jobs. Don't do that. So have a wonderful night. And I'll see you on Monday. Stay safe and God bless.